where a disconnection in a relationship is always an opportunity to reconnect and make the relationship even stronger. We all look at disconnects and an argument, a fight, whatever it is. We always look at it as this bad thing. And in any relationship you're in that matters to you, there's going to be conflict, there's going to be arguments. And if you learn how to reconnect afterwards, you're building the relationship stronger. If you can have the disagreement, get through it, however that looks, messy as it is, and reconnect afterwards, even if it's a few days later, your relationship is stronger. You can trust the other person.
Welcome to Forged in Silence, addressing issues men face but rarely talk about. And yes, we have women here. Julie and Amber joining us again. It is awesome always to have you two here. I love these perspective episodes. I think they're fun. I like listening to what you guys have to say about these topics tonight or today. We're going to talk about conflict. That's going to be this episode, just so you guys know what's coming up. What does conflict look like between a man and a woman, and how do we deal with this in a healthy way? I'm sure we all know what unhealthy ways look like. Today we're going to talk about what those look like and what hopefully a healthy way of conflict is and how it sounds, and maybe get some examples from these ladies too. And also maybe how they would like to hear certain things from us so they can relate it in a certain way, so we can have this meshing of both women and men addressing how they would like to hear the conflict, so maybe they don't get their backs up so much, or they stay open to hearing what we have to say. And I think it's vice versa for us men. If women are experiencing something that they need to communicate to us, how do we not take that stuff so personally? How do we not get our backs up right away, so we can be open to listening to the whats and the whys and the underlying nuance that created the disconnection, the disagreement, the conflict. So anyways, thank you, Amber and Julie, for joining us again today. We're going to start out the same way we always start out, is with a how are you really? And I'm going to drop this one on Amber first, just for fun.
Well, fun.
And
I
so,
get to be
Amber,
first.
yes, you get to be first. How are you really?
I am really good. Really good. Yeah, I'm really enjoying my new job and doing some stuff, for myself, kind of getting outside of my comfort zone in other ways to get some more things going for myself. So, yeah, in general, I've been on a bit of a high, which is pretty awesome. And I'm not expecting the other shoe to drop, which is odd. It
So it's
feels
just good, and you're not fearing the good to disappear somewhere out of like thin air.
No, I think because I acknowledge, that I'm in control of keeping the good going. Obviously, there's going to be things outside of my control, but I play a major part in keeping the good going. So, yeah, I'm doing really well.
Excellent. Thank you
Yeah,
for being here, and
thanks
thank
for
you for
asking.
sharing, Amber.
I'm so happy to be here. I love these.
It is now on you to hand it over to whomever you feel as fit for the next one. Who's your next victim? I mean, who's your next who do you want to know about the most?
Oh, I want to know about all of you. I'm gonna lop it over to Julie. How are you
Awesome.
really, my friends?
Yeah, I'm actually pretty good right now. I think I'm in a little bit of a good space like you are, like riding the high a little bit. It's been a long summer of low. Things are kind of on an upswing right now, similar to what you're doing. I'm like, what can I control? What can I not control? What can I do something about today instead of focusing on all of the anxiety and stuff and whatever, I cannot impact at this moment. So I guess a little bit of staying present. But no, overall, things are going well. I had some good brainstorming sessions with Steve about the direction of my business and letting go of things I can't control in my personal life. And overall, it's a good state of growth. I'll take it. Actually, Steve and I were talking a little bit about like I'm almost in like a level spot, which are really super uncomfortable for me. because I feel like I'm either putting out fires, like I'm so low that I'm just like trying to claw my way out of the low, or I'm like growing and growing and like learning all this stuff and really pushing myself forward. And I'm kind of in it just like I'm riding a wave right now. And for the couple of days, I was like, what the hell is wrong with me? Like what is this feeling? And then I was like, oh wait, this is peace. Okay, I will just enjoy the peace. But like it took a minute to name that. No, overall, I'm actually in a pretty decent place. I will take it.
Awesome, Julie. Thank you for sharing that, and thank you for being here. It's always awesome to get you on here and hear your perspective.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me back. I appreciate it.
Now it's your turn. Which one of us guys are you handing it over to?
I'm going to hand it over to you, Steve.
Ooh, Robbie, you get last. We're going to save the best for last.
Perfect.
I am feeling really good. I had an experience yesterday where we organized a bunch of, we had to write a letter for a professor at school that puts in a lot of effort, and he really cares for the students. And you can tell that just by his actions and what he does. Impact is something that is high on his list of priorities and things that bring him purpose. And I get to see that when I am in his presence, and obviously outside of that presence. So I had the gift of organizing the students and putting this letter of recommendation together and then sending it to him so he could potentially get an award. And his reaction to that letter of recommendation has been something that has been running through my mind ever since I handed it to him, because you could see the pride in what he was doing. He copied it and he shared it on social media, and he talked about being burnt out, and he talked about all of these things. And then he gets this delayed gratification from putting all of this effort in, and he's got compliments after compliments after compliments from the people, that the impact that he wants, because we don't say anything. So the impact that he's trying to create, because everything happens in silence for the most part, he gets this just giant reward. He just got this giant reward, and I got to see a little glimpse of how it made him feel. That was a super cool experience. And the other experience was sitting down with Julie this morning. You know, when you see someone's gift and you try and hand it to them and say, like, you could do something amazing with this thing that you are and this thing that you love. And I got to see Julie light up this morning in just having the conversation and reflecting her gift. Like, I felt like I motivated her a little bit. Like, I felt like I gave her a piece of her in a way that she could understand it and grab onto it and go and do something with it. And all I want to do now is support the shit out of it. That's kind of how I operate anyways, is just support the shit out of it. When someone's like, yeah, I want to go and do this, I'm like, yes, you're freaking amazing at it. Go and share your damn gift. Anyways, that to me, I thought all the way home today about how that little bit there has affected me more than I have words for yet. But anyways, I am in a really good spot today. I'm feeling pretty great.
Awesome.
Long story short.
Short story long.
Yeah, or just a long story.
Long story.
Anyways, that's where I'm at. Robbie, how are you? Really?
Well, I'm glad the overreaching theme today is that we're all doing well.
Mm-hmm.
That's a good thing. It's not always that we're all doing well. I'm
No.
doing well. Had a busy week, busy stuff with my daughter, but working through it. Kind of like Julie, I'm on a level playing field, and it feels weird. I've been working on daily routines, morning routines, and also I started doing some shadow work, which fucking sucks. And it is horrible, and it hurts, and it pulls at every angle that you can get pulled from. But once you get that light bulb and like, fuck, okay, here I am. It's been a huge fresh air. And mine's, some of it's around self-limiting beliefs. And those are really hard to drum up and put the exact story to it without emotion or feeling and just tell the facts, right? That's the hardest part because I want to have something that makes me feel comfortable in that story, which I
Mm.
can't. I can't have anything. It's just, this is the facts. This is what happened. Then move on, right? And Amber, you kind of touched on that too, where you're waiting for the other shoe to drop. And it sounds like we're all kind of on the same place where uh, I'm not letting the other shoe drop. Keep holding it in my hand and hit myself on the head a few times if I have to. But
Yeah.
that's been my week. I'm doing good. Glad to be here.
Well, it is not very often that the four of us get together. Somebody's always got something going on in their life. So it's really cool just to see everybody is so upbeat and so uplifted. And so we're going to bring this upbeat and upliftedness to a conversation about conflict.
We're going to make
Between-
ourselves get pissed off.
Yeah,
Sure.
I mean, we can get pissed off, and we do. We get pissed off often enough. Sometimes about silly things and sometimes about big things. But it's how we communicate those things can either make us more pissed off or help actually relieve the tension that we're feeling. So we're going to talk about that. If anybody wants to start off, or does anybody have an idea in their head that they want to drop to be discussed, go for it.
All right, I'm going.
Okay, go.
Conflict. I'm going to look at it. I think we need to look at it in multiple ways because conflict, when in a relationship, with a coworker, with a spouse, there's always different ways of conflict. And I want to talk about my past in relationships with conflict, where conflict would come up and I was uncomfortable, didn't know how to deal with someone else's emotions or feelings at the time. And I would just keep digging and keep pushing and pushing. And to the point where the other person couldn't take it anymore and just broke down. And I felt okay to walk away because I won. In my mind, I won. But if I look at it now, I actually lost, right? Because I wasn't willing to listen to that person. I was uncomfortable with what they were saying to me. And the only way I could deal with it was push it to the edge of them breaking down.
To feel like you were successful in getting your point across.
I don't even know if it was to get out of the situation.
Mm.
Just to,
Oh, it was to so you pushed hard to get the relief.
well, all I want to do is get out of the conflict.
To shut them
Mhm.
down so you didn't have to deal with it anymore.
Oh, okay, there it is.
Yep. Yeah, 100%. Then I could walk away. They could walk away. Then I could go do what I wanted. Why I left this other person feeling horrible.
I think my history of conflict is primarily avoid it like the plague. Do whatever it takes to avoid conflict at all costs. That was what my entire marriage was built on, was let's just avoid conflict. So we literally did not have a fight in 18 years of marriage. I would tell friends that. I'm like, "No, we really don't fight. There's no fighting. We have never had an argument." And friends would be like, "Oh, I don't believe that. That's nobody lives like that, right?" And then I remember the first time we told a marriage counselor that, and the look on the marriage counselor's face was like, "Y'all have issues." And he was like, "I am so much more concerned with a couple that doesn't fight than I am with a couple that fights badly." And that had been, I think we both thought we were good people because we never fought, we never argued. And we're like, look how morally wonderful we are because we don't get into these yelling, screaming matches like all the other couples do, right? And it turns out we were both just people pleasing the fuck out of each other, never said anything we actually meant, walked around resenting and all of the horrible things, because conflict is important and it does have a purpose and it does accomplish important things in a relationship that we just avoided. And so I think the biggest thing for me, the shift from the old version to the new version, is just a willingness to engage in conflict. And it's not always clean and perfect. And I would love to tell you that I've got it mastered and I'm so good at
I
conflict.
think conflict is messy anyways, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't think there's a way to do it where it's just smooth and clean and
Mhm.
wrapped up tidy with a bow. And you have to be okay with that. And that was not ever okay for me back before.
Isn't conflict smooth and wrapped in a bow basically people pleasing with a ribbon on it?
Absolutely.
Isn't that what it ends up being? It's like, oh, we're in an argument, and then people please my way through the compliment. Like a conflict. I mean, I guess it can happen, but I think a messy, and by messy, I just mean really uncomfortable feelings.
Mhm.
The feeling of detachment in a relationship, super uncomfortable, right? Especially when you have one person with an anxious attachment style and the other one with an avoidant attachment style, right? I don't want to deal with this, and then you feel emotionally detached because they're shutting down. And so not only do we have now the conflict of I went and I didn't listen to your needs and I went out with the boys or whatever it was, and you were like, no, I need you to be home to take care of this, or that you made this promise or whatever it is, and I just ignored it. You know, there's that conflict, there's that conversation that needs to happen, which is, then you have the emotional conflict that ties into that afterwards, which is a whole nother level of how do we communicate our way through and around it by better understanding where each side sits. For me, conflict was something I think I would bring up, but if it wasn't important to them, I would let it go. And then so it was like, well, I said something, so I kind of gave myself like the little easy way out, and then I just never had the courage to turn around and say, no, I really have a problem with this. This is something I don't want to do anymore, and stand behind it. It would wash away like a wave, come up to shore, it would touch the sand, and then if it wasn't important to you, it would fuck right back off into the water.
Well, and that's the invalidation piece, right? Like, oh my God, why are you making such a big deal out of nothing? And then you're like, oh, you're right. I did
You're right,
that.
it's nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think also too, in a healthy relationship, if something is brought up in that relationship, there should be someone putting the brakes on and going, oh, he just said something to me.
Hmm.
And that means something. I need to talk about it. We need to talk about it. I was the same with avoidance. You said something to me, I turned around and ran. Like, I didn't want to hear it. I didn't want to have the conflict. But it works both ways. I would say something to someone else, and they didn't want to hear that either, and then they would turn around and run. But I really think that's part of the healthy relationship and the vulnerability between the two people having the conflict and understanding where to meet each other. I don't think we know how to do that very good as humans.
What do you got, Amber? You gotta come on.
Just, I mean, for me, yeah, I avoided conflict at all costs. Only just because I didn't know how to conflict. I grew up with my parents. My dad adopted this, like, he was just this silent person. Like, my mom would just go off on these absolute rampages, and he wouldn't respond. He would totally shut down. He knew he wasn't going to win, and so he didn't have a voice, and he's like, why bother? I'll just create my own peace. I'll just sit in my own, in my own bubble and just let her go. And for me, it was like, I didn't know how to communicate my needs, but I knew that, like, my needs weren't being met, but it was always everybody else's fault. So, like, I was always the victim. I was at one point, like, you know, after a few years of sobriety and meeting Julie and Steve, and this whole, like, martyrdom thing came up, and I was like, that's me, like, that realization of, just always trying to do and manipulate and manage everybody else's emotions. And then when I didn't get what I wanted or what I needed, it was their fault. And then I, would have this argument and just have all of these things to say, which was really just avoiding. It was avoiding conflict. It was avoiding saying the hard stuff and being vulnerable. It's like, we talk about conflict wrapped up in a neat little package with a pretty bow, and it's, some of the influencers or some of the, things we see in social media where they have this very eloquent, very well spoken conflict. And that makes me roll my eyes, even because conflict is messy. There's emotion there. It's okay to be angry. It's okay to be frustrated. It's okay to have those unpleasant feelings, but I think it's how you deliver them and how you express them, right? And you learn to say, like, you're really pissing me off, right? Instead of that, it's like, I feel really angry right now and I feel really irritated and I feel pissed off. And you might not even know how, you might not even understand why at the moment, right? And so you can say, I need to I need to take a step back. I need to figure out where all of this is coming from. It might be something that you did, or you might just be triggering something from my past that I haven't dealt with yet. But yeah, conflict is real and it's vulnerable and it's raw and it's messy. But I think when you say do it the right way, I think when you do it authentically and you just show up with how you feel and you say like this is where I'm at right now, you give the other person the option, be present and to participate in that conversation as opposed to just putting it all on one person.
Isn't that one of the hardest things to do, though?
Mhm.
Letting the other person participate,
Yes.
I also
allowing it to exist on both sides. And the hardest part for me was to not take it personally. I think it's got to be the hardest part. Conflict comes from, I mean, there's a balls of emotion on either side. We're trying to express it in a way that honors ourselves, and we also don't want to dishonor the other party. Therein lies the mess, because how do I still stay authentic to myself, and how do I still stand behind the value that now I'm trying to say, hold up here for a second. And you don't want to piss the other person off, but it's going to be necessary unless you're approached with curiosity. A lot of the times that doesn't happen, right? A lot of the times the curiosity doesn't exist on the other side until 2 days later.
Well, so many of us never learned the healthy skills. So conflict, if you want to have healthy conflict, you have to have two healthy people, or at least two people who are willing to try new ways to handle this. I think that's the hardest thing when we talk about teaching conflict. When I work with clients and I'm trying to help them learn conflict, when they've got a spouse on the other side that has no interest in doing things any differently, there's only so much you can do, right? But I know, like Steve, you said you have to say something to the other person and you don't want them to get angry. For me, if someone comes to me and is like, hey, you did this thing, it didn't work for me, this is how it made me feel, and I'd like to talk about whatever, no matter how gentle it is, the first place I go is I failed. And I get defensive and I'm like, here's all the reasons I'm not a failure. And I just fight it all back because I don't want to. So, and I think it's really important for all of us, everybody who is in any kind of relationship that will involve conflict, which is, I guess, all humans, we need to recognize that initial instinctual reaction. What do I go to first? For me, it's defensive. It's no matter how nice you are, if you're calling me out on something, I'm going to go straight to failure and shame and then defensiveness. And all of my responses back in that conversation are going to be based from defensiveness unless I stop and pause and be like, oh, wait. That's how I'm showing up here. I need to shift this into how can we work this out for both of us? And I think that's maybe one of the most important steps in conflict for all people is recognize your initial reaction, and your go-to. Because I think some people initially get angry and they just want to rage back at the other person, or they shut down completely, put up a wall, and they can't hear a word. And so we all have a different way of our like automatic reaction to conflict. And I think knowing what yours is the first step to starting to change it, which is a process. It's not like you flip a switch, but yeah, I think that's important.
there's something when I'm thinking when it gets to a resentment, then it gets brought to you. There's going to be all kinds of different emotions there from both parties. I've learned if you don't let it get to that resentment spot and you talk about it as, hey, when you do this or when this happened, I felt this way. If you let it get to resentment and that anger comes out, the whole conflict changes. And a lot of times I think back to when I've had some good mentors for work, bosses, and they're like, hey, we need to have a talk. And the first thing is like, hey, when you did this way, it didn't do what we needed to do, and you need to do it this way. That was constructive criticism. Like, oh, I didn't realize I did that. I will work on it and do it next time the way that it's supposed to be done. Now, when we're in relationships, that takes like Julie was saying, it's like take a dagger to the heart because it's like, oh, you're hurting me. Like, but I really think in the way that we approach these conflicts is a better way too. To I hate using the word conflict because it just when I say it, it just sounds like we're gonna have a fight. It really
Yeah,
means
I mean, you
I think
have this.
disconnection is maybe a better description for that.
Yeah.
yeah.
conflict, fight, disagreement.
Disagreement, yeah.
We have like all of these different kind of ways. For me, a fight is you have, it could be, that's physical. That's a whole different
Yeah,
ballgame. We're
yeah.
talking about a disconnection in the relationship
Mhm.
where I've done something, you've done something, someone's done something, and or said something that was offensive or
Or not
whatever it
or
is
not done
that,
something.
or not done something
Right.
that creates distance in the relationship. What? Go ahead, Robbie.
Well, I was thinking, I don't know if you guys remember this last year when, my daughter first came lived with me, like, some shit was going down, and I freaking blew up on her. I think I remember talking to you guys about this, and I think Julie said, "Well, you probably should have, approached her in a different way." And, I wanted to fight back. I wanted to be like, "Fuck you. No, nope. This is me. I'm dad." But I remember just listening to Julie, and I'm like, "Oh, I did. I screwed up." And that's stuck with me ever since. Like, she comes to me with the conflict, disconnect, an issue, whatever it is. I'm like, my first words are, "What can I do to help? How can we talk about this? How are you feeling? How did I make you feel? Or who's making you feel?" All these other things. I know how to have these conversations now. You know, 46 years old, I finally learned how to have those conversations.
That's how we show care.
Yeah.
I'm going to say this loud and I'm going to say it really in anyone's face. Yelling and screaming and all of the rest of that crap is not care. I don't give a crap what anybody says. If I'm being yelled at and screamed at, that is not a level of care. If you actually care about me, this is how I would want to be approached. If you actually care about me, showing up big and screaming and all of the rest of that, is all I'm seeing is that you're hurt and you don't give a flying fuck about me. What I would like to see, if it was me, and I was going to ask you guys this question anyways, but you need to approach me as if you care about this relationship. Yelling and screaming is not a care that you show me you care about me and the relationship. Yelling and screaming shows me that you very much care about yourself and you don't give a crap about me, even though I've done something wrong.
Mhm.
You're making yourself way more important than the relationship itself. So I need to approach this, and you need to approach me with a level of care that you would expect in return. So if you're going to show up yelling and screaming, you better expect the same in return. That, or I'm just going to walk away. I'm not going to want to be a part of it. You're clearly not willing to listen. I don't know anybody that's willing to listen that's yelling and screaming. No one.
No.
No
Mhm.
one.
Mhm.
The only time you're only willing to listen is when you show up with a level of care that says, here is my thing. I'm willing to hear your side.
If we
Eh,
if we look at that now, though, right? We know now when someone comes at us like that, it's out of
Uh-huh.
anger.
Uh-huh.
And you're like, "Oh, you're really angry. You need to chill out." Before, someone would meet me with that, and I'm like, "Oh, we're gonna do this then. I can get angry really fast. Let's do it."
Yeah, me
Yeah.
too. Me
Yeah.
too. Bring it on. I guess this is the level we're at, so I'm going to
Yeah.
match your level.
Yeah, then whatever got solved out of that conflict.
Nothing.
We both got hurt and walked away. Then, like you said, 2 days later, we realized, shit, they were trying to tell me something.
How often do you ever reconnect after that shit, though? How often do you ever actually come back and say, you know what? The way I acted here was wrong. The way I acted here was not, I was out of anger. I apologize for that. That I was out of line. I will try and do better next time. I still have this issue and we still need to talk about it. Are you willing to talk about it now? Sometimes in the heat of the moment, no one wants to listen to shit. But if we don't ever revisit it, we're going to have that same conflict all over again. The same thing is going to happen. We haven't dealt with anything. We haven't resolved anything. We haven't heard both sides of the story.
That reconnect there is where the relationship foundation gets built even stronger.
Mhm.
That was like an eye opener for me. And I think it was Brene Brown who first talked about it, or that I first heard it from, where a disconnection in a relationship is always an opportunity to reconnect and make the relationship even stronger. We all look at disconnects and an argument, a fight, whatever it is, and a conflict. We always look at it as this bad thing. And in any relationship you're in that matters to you, there's going to be conflict, there's going to be arguments. And if you learn how to reconnect afterwards, you're building the relationship stronger. If you can have the disagreement, get through it, however that looks, messy as it is, and reconnect afterwards, even if it's a few days later, your relationship is stronger. You can trust the other person to get through a conflict and not abandon you or not stay angry at you or not carry resentment towards you. So you build this trust with the other person, and that trust can only be built with conflict. So in all that time that I've spent avoiding conflict for, my whole life, I was ruining any chance for a deeper connection with anyone, whether that was friends or my parents or my husband or my kids or whatever. And I think that's an important thing, that an important distinction is that conflict isn't bad. Conflict is an opportunity for something even better.
Opportunity to get to know someone better, isn't it?
And trust them. I think the trust that
Yeah.
comes out of the
Respect.
reconnect, and respect, another good one, is so valuable, and you can't get it anywhere else. You've got to get it from reconnecting after a disconnection.
I remember after that issue with my daughter, and you had mentioned something, Julie, about I think Brene about. Anyways, I found a video, and it was this lady that was talking about she was made dinner for her kids, and one of her kids didn't like what she cooked, and the kids stormed off. And you know, they finished eating. Then she said how important the reconnection was, and that's always stuck with me. She goes, "I went in there, sat down in the room, and said, 'Why are you so upset?' It's not about what I made for dinner. There's something else." Then she found the reason, reconnect, and she goes, "Next time when he's angry about what I made for dinner, I know there's something else going on. And he
Mhm.
knows I know. So there's not going to be this discussion about what I made for dinner anymore. We nipped that in the butt, and now he he can respect coming to me and talking to me about it, and I can respect him for having the issue. It's just about the conflict, disconnection, whatever it is." And she goes, "How many of you, when you were growing up, you got told to leave the table and your parents told you to go to your room and they never came and talked to you after? What did that do to us?" That's why we got to where we were, where we had to figure out how to deal with our own bullshit. Because
Yeah, you were punished for being upset. You were punished for being upset, for being
For
angry,
feeling,
for
yeah.
having emotion.
yeah,
Mhm.
and we look at society now, and I can see why a lot of us is like that. And I know, us right here had our stuff and working through it, but it's like if, and I know that's the old school way of kids were raised. I understand that. But now look at it the way kids are raised, it's way to the other side now. And whatever they're feeling or their emotions is whatever, right? It's like, "Oh, so sorry, the victim," whatever we want to say. And now we're going way too far this other direction. And like, we're always talking about balance, and we got to come back, and yes, it's okay to have these feelings and emotions, but you can't play the victim, and you've got to do something with them. We got to have the conversation. I can't, whatever the issue is, I'm just going to use, don't like going to school. Then the parents don't let their kids go to school because they feel bad for them. Then the kid doesn't learn whatever. We're seeing that a lot more where these young kids now, whatever their emotions are, the parents just roll over. Past, you couldn't have any emotions. You left the dinner table, good luck. You're not eating, and maybe mom and dad aren't going to talk to you the next day. Where's that balance? And I think we're starting to find that now ourselves, where this balance falls into conflict.
The acknowledgement that it exists, the acceptance that this is the current reality, and then the accountability portion of you're allowed to feel the way you feel. It doesn't mean that this is going to be a permanent thing from here on out. It's still not appropriate.
It's the
So
respect
we still, yeah.
you can it's like, when you're punished as a child, right, sent to your room, all I could think of was like you're creating two unhealthy things there. One, you're punishing for having the emotion. You're also not taking the opportunity to use it as a teaching moment for respect, where it's like you can come in and have the conversation and be like, "Hey, it's totally valid and okay for you to have emotions and for you to be upset, but it is not okay for you to be disrespectful in your behaviors towards others when you're in those feelings." And so, how can we help, or how can we figure out how to allow space for the negative emotion or for whatever the emotion is, while also maintaining respect for the people that care about you, right? Because then you just like you push people away when you act like that. When really you want that, you want their help, but you're pushing them away with your behaviors. And so I don't know, it was just something I thought of.
And everything we're talking about here with the way kids are raised, the way we were raised, the way kids are raised now, the way, that middle balance, that balance is what we need to be reparenting ourselves to do,
Yeah.
reparenting ourselves to find. That's a goal. Like that is the goal when it comes to conflict is if we look at that from, our kids, how do we want our kids to show up in conflict? That's exactly what we need to be teaching ourselves also. And it's hard to undo the old stories and show up differently. I think one of the most valuable things you can do in a relationship, in any relationship, and this has worked with my daughter, but like just say, hey, so, and in a time of no conflict, in a time where everything's pretty good and pretty chill, just be like, hey, so that one time that we argued about this, I noticed we're actually not very good at conflict. I would love to try it differently next time because there will be a next time. We will always argue again. Can we approach it differently and see if we can both get a little better at this? And I think that would be a great way to approach a spouse relationship, someone that you're dating, whatever, that romantic relationship where emotions are running high, is to say, hey, so this isn't working. It's not working for me. I know it's not working for you. We're both ending up hurt in the way we're doing conflict now. Can we both try it a little differently next time? And it's probably still going to be messy, but can we be open to figuring out a better way to do this? And that way you get buy-in from both sides. So both people are working for the same thing. And the other thing I was going to say is Robbie mentioned this earlier when you talked about how you used to handle conflict and you would just overload the person until they gave up so you could walk away and feel like you won. And I think that in conflict, we all need to remember that it's not our goal to win, right? It's our goal for the relationship to win. And so if we can step back and be like, okay, wait, here's how I'm feeling. This is what I want. This is where I'm at. But how can we make the whole relationship be the winner, not just one person or the other? And I think that perspective is important too.
I want to go back to the reconnection part. Because I think a lot of the times that conflict happens and we messily kind of smooth it over a little bit. And then we have to go about our lives. So we smooth it over a little bit to ease the discomfort on one side or the other, both sides. And then you carry on about your life. But nothing's really resolved. You've resolved the momentary heightened emotions where you have a little bit of understanding of either side, but both of your backs are still up because I'm butthurt and you're defensive. But at some point in time, if we don't really ever reapproach this, and Julie, I'm going back to like that time where I got butthurt because I took something the wrong way, and we ended up in conflict trying to figure it out. And what happened is we smoothed it over a little, but nothing ever really got resolved. We just smoothed over the heightened emotion on either side to a point where we could still have conversation about other shit. But it wasn't until 2 days later that we were out doing something else and something came up. And I was like, well, how about that thing? I was like, I need to take responsibility for this part. Right. That was on my bad. And you really have to be open to listening to this because you hear stuff that's uncomfortable to hear. I heard stuff that was uncomfortable to hear. And Julie, when you say, okay, let me hear your side of the story. And if I can just separate myself from being offended from that side of the story, I can listen to it. And I can also be like, hey, I need you to take responsibility for this part because this is not my part really. And it's like, yes, you're right. I'll take responsibility for this part, but I need you to take responsibility for this part here. Yes, I will do that. I will work on that too. And in the end, when we finished this conversation, we both knew who was responsible for what and had an idea of where that reaction came from. So, I could have had that reaction based on a past experience that I'm overlaying onto this one.
You were just
And I'm
hangry,
making,
Steve. You were just hangry.
I was just hangry.
Steve
But
can get hangry.
it
He
did,
was in a mood that night.
I was in a mood that night. And so that's my responsibility. I
But then I
have
got
to
super
take
defensive, and then I got super whatever and accusatory, and so I came back with a whole bunch of really unhealthy stuff that just fueled whatever fire this was that didn't even need to be a fire. It was stupid. But yeah, no, Steve was like, "You hurt my feelings," and I was like, "F you, you whatever." And I got all defensive. I don't think I actually cussed, but I got all defensive, and I was like, "Fine, this and that," and I like totally overreacted. And neither one of us was really okay at the end of the day. And we had other stuff to do. Like life needed to go on, and we needed to get other work done. But then it was like 2 days later, we're like, okay. So I got super defensive, and I definitely overreacted. I'm really sorry about that. I'm going to work on that. And it was so at the end of that, that was the reconnect. The reconnect isn't just smooth it over so you can move on with life. And the reconnect may need to happen after emotions come back down and everybody's grounded again. And then we're like, okay, let's look at this from a new, healthier perspective. And that's the reconnect. And that's where then the relationship gets a little stronger and you trust the person a little more. So the next time I say something slightly snarky that Steve takes in a different way, maybe I don't have to get so defensive and we don't have to have this big blowout thing that was unnecessary.
I think the reconnect too, as you guys mentioned it, but can be totally different, right? Like your guys' kind of was whatever. Steve was hungry. Julie made some remarks. Steve made some remarks. Whatever. Then you come back 2 days later and like came back to it. The root cause of the beginning of the conflict may have kind of been resolved. Who knows? But that reconnect might be something totally different, where you come back and go, like you guys were saying, I said this, I said that, I didn't mean to say that. My emotions were running high. This was going on. Then you can talk about maybe that issue that was at hand. Maybe that issue is already gone.
We also had, when we worked on resolving that, the resolution portion of it, I'm going to call that, when we worked on that part, there was a responsibility taken on either side, and there was an action taken on either side. Yes, this is something I will be responsible for. I'll take responsibility for, and I'll try and be better next time. Doesn't mean I'm going to. It's an effort that I have to put into. I also have to recognize the same sort of pattern the next time conflict arises. It's not something you just practice for fun. Like, I'm just going to piss you off, Robbie, just so I can practice my conflict resolution skills.
No, the other thing that we did that was really helpful in the resolution conversation was how could I have said this differently that wouldn't have been so hurtful for you? So we could have the conversation so next time it looks a little bit better. Right? This is all practice. Being an emotionally healthy human is a practice. It's something we practice constantly and especially in relationships where how could I do this differently next time, and I kind of gave him some feedback. Well, this is one thing that you said that hurt my feelings, and I know I need to take responsibility for my reaction, but if you had said it this way, that actually would have come across a lot nicer for me. And I think we both kind of gave each other that feedback too, which is like, I mean, I think we're lucky that we've worked together long enough that we can do that. And I don't think that that's like, it takes a while. It takes probably a lot of conflict to get to the point where you can have those conversations. But I think that that's really helpful.
Well, I think the reconnect of the reconnect is the best part. That's where the respect is built. And you mentioned that earlier, Julie. That's where you could be like, 2 days ago we had this. We're over it, whatever. Then you're just like looking back on it and reflecting, like, holy shit, we were both in a whatever place. Then I know I could be like, hey, when I get to that place, will you just maybe have some safe words? I know this sounds weird, but like have some stuff to like chill me out, give me a hug, tell me it's okay, I love you, whatever it needs to be. Because that was one thing you said, Steve, is take a step back. I know when my emotions are high, I cannot take a step back. I'm moving forward as fast as I can to get my point across, to either feel better about myself or get out of the uncomfortableness. So I think that reconnect is the magical part of, if it happens. It doesn't always happen, but I know that's something that I try to work on with my daughter now, is like, hey, we talked about this a few days ago. Where are you at today? And usually it's a whole different conversation, to tell you the truth, because now it's fresh, it's new, and we can have that conversation that we might have not been able to have 2 days ago when everyone was upset.
That's the coming back at it when you have some leveler heads.
Mhm.
Emotions haven't been risen, the cortisol level isn't up, you're not in fight or flight mode, you don't want to be a bull in a china shop or run like a chicken with your head cut off. Like, I mean, both of those exist, that could all depend on whatever situation you're in and how hard you want to draw your line.
And so
Also
many of us
wanted
just wanna brush it under the rug, right? After it's over, after we've smoothed it
Yeah,
over as well as it
it's
we're going
done.
to,
It's all
brush it under the rug, let's never talk about it again, let's pretend that never happened, and if we can stop doing that, then we can actually come back and learn from the situation.
yeah, yeah, 100%.
Go ahead,
What were you
Amber.
gonna say, Amber?
I was just gonna say, the other thing I kind of wanted to touch on too, because I know it's actually a pretty common theme is how we like respond, and then because we're different, and I'll even go so far as to say that men and women are different in how they handle like the resolution of the conflict, right?
Mhm.
And so I know in talks I've seen a lot of like men tend to need to take their space, right? They want to go out in the garage. They want to go out, they want to do something, they want to blow off some steam, they want to take space from the situation. Whereas women tend to like, and I speak for myself, like I'm a fixer, right? And so I'm like, no, but we need to fix this right now. Like this is we can't there can be no time like right now. I need to fix it like yesterday. And so that's like a really important piece too, because sometimes it's even worse than the conflict itself, where one person is left feeling where it's like, I need to walk away from the situation, right? And that person just walks away. And then the person left behind, myself, there would be that feeling of abandonment and that feeling of like, I don't matter and you're not willing to have this conversation with me right now. And so I think it's important that even in conflict, that healthy boundaries around how we're going to like what's the word I'm looking for? Not deal with the conflict, but in other words, to say like if you're the person who needs to take space and you're like, I need to walk away. I need to, I can't deal with this right now. I need to go think about it. I think it's okay, to be able to for the other person to say, okay, but can we be clear about the amount like can you give me an amount of time that you feel like that you're going to need to process this? Right? So it gives me some feeling of stability of, if you say I need to go for a few hours and I need to process this, I'm going to go tinker in the garage. Let's let's reconvene, if it's 6 o'clock, let's reconvene at 8 after the kids are in bed or whatever the situation is, and have a discussion about it. And it gives that finite, clarification of the other person isn't left hanging. And then the other piece I was going to touch on is I had heard this story, and it was basically about in conflict, this man would like still bring his wife, a glass of water or, a cup of tea or something like that, and someone had asked him like, why? Like, she's so angry with you. Why would you, right? Because she was really angry with him. Why would you do that? And there's that piece that says, or like he was the one that was angry. I'm angry with you right now, but I still care.
Mhm.
I'm angry with you, but I still love you, right? And it's just these little pieces of connection where it's like, I'm angry and I need to process that, but you still matter to me. Your well being still matters to me. And those little pieces, it's all just like the reconnect and the connection of that. So those were just my 2 cents on those things.
Mhm.
I think I would do that
Yeah.
stuff in spite.
Yeah.
Robbie looked like he
Yeah.
had something to say. I wasn't sure that it was gonna be that, but
Here's your tea. See, I still care.
Yep, 100%, you got it. Yep. Oh, I
Some
didn't mean to
passive
spill it on
aggressive.
I did yeah,
Yeah.
passive oh, I didn't mean to spill it on you, now you gotta go clean it off.
I'm not that much of an asshole. I brought you tea.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I've been
I
in
think
those
there's
kind of
something
relationships.
I think it's important too to talk about what apologies look like, and we can make it fairly brief, but apologies are a part of a conflict. Every single time, they're probably going to be a part of the conflict because feelings are gonna get hurt and apologies need to happen. And if there's one thing I've learned, it's that a real apology goes a long way, and a fake or bad apology just causes more damage. I know that I would express how I was feeling if I did express anything. And it would always be met with, "I'm sorry you feel that way."
Yes.
And so
that is
many
like the most dismissive.
imagine there's a lot of guys who hear me say that and they're like, "But what's wrong with that?" Because that to them is an apology, probably because that's how most people apologize. Well, I'm sorry you feel that way. And
I
all
hate it when
that's
women say that to me.
sure. Oh, for sure.
Women say that all the time. That drives me nuts. You're
Yeah.
sorry I
Sorry
feel
you
that
feel
way.
that way.
Talk about putting ginormous amount of distance between me and you.
Make it about
That
yourself.
is you.
Go for it.
What's that?
Make it about yourself. Go for it.
Well, I mean, that's what's happened, right?
100%.
Those words mean the way you feel don't matter to me.
Yep.
It's the way you're feeling is wrong. You shouldn't
Yeah.
feel that way.
It's super dismissive.
As opposed
And I
to,
know, like,
I'm
culturally, we
sorry that
use that.
the
Yeah,
thing
it's
I
like
did
culturally right now
caused that
we
feeling.
use that. Yeah, we use that sentence to. It's supposed to be a form of sympathy. And
It's just giving
so
the other person all the responsibility. And
Yeah.
100%.
an
Yep.
apology is taking responsibility for what you did. And
Mhm.
I'm sorry you feel that way is handing them back the responsibility so you don't have to take any part of it.
Just
Here
hearing
you
that
go.
makes me mad.
It's not even a right or wrong thing. It's just, I'm sorry that this action or this thing that I said hurt you. What is it that I need to know, or what information do I need to be able to do this differently, to not hurt you? Right? Is there a way that I can express whatever it is I need to express without hurting you? Right? Like, I'm
It
sorry.
might not even be without hurting you,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
how can I express this thing,
Mhm.
right? Because I can't be afraid of whether I'm going to hurt you or not, right? I'm afraid of the disconnection that happens. I'm afraid of the loss, the potential loss that might happen that conflict creates, right? But if I'm afraid of hurting you, I'm never going to address the problem. I can't be afraid of hurting you. I have to still care about the way you feel. Completely different story.
Goal should be not to hurt you again.
If something needs to be done differently, yeah.
Yes.
Something
yes.
needs to be
Yeah.
done differently. Yeah.
Yeah.
hmm
Because I think too many times, men and women both can, just like what you're saying there, Jillian, men can do the same thing where, oh, I'm sorry, I won't do that again, type of thing. Whatever, you didn't wash the dishes. Well, I'm sorry, I didn't wash the dishes. That gets into a weird thing where, what does the dishes mean? And if you have that in your head to go, she's mad at something else. She's not mad because I didn't do the dishes. There's something else going on there. And a man's like, well, next time I'll just do the fucking dishes. Oh, there's no resolution there. That's not an apology. That's nothing. Like, we're still in the same exact place as we started. I still don't know what she's upset about the dishes. And we both can
Right.
play this game, and we're both very good at it. Especially the longer the relationship, the more resentment gets built with these conflicts, and how unemotionally available each other can be to each other.
The nasty part about that whole thing is the longer the resentment stays there, and we have to remember that we're responsible for holding on to that resentment because we're supposed to be the ones that are bringing it up, that we aren't. But the longer we hold that resentment, the less respect we have for that person. That is the cost. It's the silent cost of holding that resentment. And I think that that's what kills the relation. It's not the conflict itself. It's the avoidance of it costs the respect for both sides.
Safety
Because
and everything, all of it, all of
Everything
the
goes
good
with it.
stuff, the connection.
I can
Yeah.
say that all my relationships have ended because of resentment. Sometimes on my side and other times the other side. There was something that was never talked about.
And I mean, in the end, when you find the courage to talk about that and engage in the conflict, especially when it comes from a good spot, a good place, that is you showing care. It's just like a boundary is showing care for the relationship. And I think if we package it up like that, I'm saying it has to be it has to be some sort of version of trying to be, it doesn't have to be perfect, but of trying to be healthy. Communication. We can say it until we're blue in the damn face. And I'm sure we hear it all the time. Just we have to communicate. The more we communicate, the better chance we have of learning how to use the right words and using our words properly. The better chance we have of having the words that we need to express ourselves. And that is why we're here. One of the other reasons why we're here is to address the loneliness that happens in men. There's a loneliness epidemic across men and women. That is just true along all of it. Men, the suicide rate overall in men is higher. Men take a greater, harsher action over their depression and the loneliness and the feeling of not being seen and heard and respected. And I hope it's conversations like this that can help a relationship, help someone say something that they need to say, even though they don't really have the words. Finding the language, finding the little bit of self-respect to say, you know what, something needs to be a little bit different here today, and I need your help. That's what conflict is, right? Something has to change, and I need your help. This is essentially what we're trying to find another new common ground. So if there's any men out there that need support and that want to get some stuff off their chest, Robbie and I are here. You can hit us up on Instagram, Forged in Silence Podcast. There's two ladies here that if there's any ladies listening here, or if you men know ladies that need someone to talk to, those two ladies I know would give them the time of day. Absolutely. Because they have big hearts too. Amber and Julie, thank you guys as always for sharing your hearts and your time with us. We really appreciate it here.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for inviting us to have these conversations. It's a pleasure.
We'll see you two again in another month and change, and we'll do it all over again.
Awesome. Looking forward to it.